Welcome back, and now my exclusive interview with the Speaker of the House, John Boehner. Speaker Boehner discussing with me a wide array of topics, from contempt charges against former IRS official Lois Lerner to jobs and tax reform, and of course, the Benghazi scandal. I sat down with Speaker Boehner just moments before he announced the names of the 6 Republican members of the Select Committee, chaired by Congressman Trey Gowdy, investigating the events surrounding that September 11th, 2012 terrorist attack on our consulate in Libya. I began by asking Speaker Boehner how he chose these 6.
Well, we have a lot of very talented people in our conference. And what I tried to do was to find people who had worked on this investigation and others who frankly had not, but bright, energetic, and people committed to getting to the facts. I don't want, this is a serious investigation. I don't want theater, I don't want a sideshow. I want the members of this committee to find the facts for the 4 families who lost their loved ones and the facts for the American people.
Why 7 Republicans and 5 Democrats? Why didn't you go 6 and 6?
Well, because Republicans have the majority in the House. And the way the House operates, the majority has more members. And as a result, on each of the committees, we have more members. Now, Leader Pelosi, when she created the so-called Climate Change Committee, you know, it was, I think it was 8-5 or 9-6, somewhere in that range, which is very typical for what happens here in the House.
So, in fact, last week we learned that there were some documents withheld.
Well, that's the whole purpose of this. We've had 4 committees working on this for the last 20 months, and they've done a very good job. But last week, there were 2 lines that were crossed. One is when it became clear that the White House was more engaged in how this was going to be described than they had previously admitted to. And secondly, there were some documents that were turned over to Judicial Watch as a result of a FOIA request that had not been turned over via a subpoena that the Congress had issued to the administration. Two serious mistakes, in my view, that really told me they're not going to be honest with us, and it was time to bring all of these investigations into one place.
So what are you looking for to find out that we don't know already?
You know, I think there are probably 3 areas that, that the committee will look at. The events leading up to 9/11/2012, the number of requests for more security and why it was not provided. And then obviously the events of the night of September 11th, 2012, what happened, why there was no response, and then thirdly, why did the White House describe this in a way I believe they knew was false.
Yeah, and you've said that. You've said that the White House played a more significant role in the development of how they communicated and how they described what happened. How do we know that? Tell us more about that.
Well, I think this email that we saw last week, where it was not only describing this differently than I think they knew at the time, but also why. Because the storyline out of the White House for their election was Al-Qaeda's on the run, and we've killed bin Laden. They didn't want that storyline to be stepped on.
This is the point. So take us back to September 11th, 2012. We were right before the presidential election. Do you think the Benghazi cover-up actually changed the outcome of the election?
Well, I don't think we'll never know. We'll never know that. But the American people deserve the truth. Our entire system of government is built on transparency and accountability, and without that, we're giving power to the administration and taking power away from the American people. The truth is important for this case so that we do not ever get into a situation like this again. There are a lot of lessons to be learned here, and that will be one of the charges from me to the committee, to make sure that the lessons that are learned here guide us so that we don't have a situation like this again.
And you think Chairman Gowdy and Darrell Issa will work together? And Issa's been working on this for a long time. Are they going to share information?
All the committees that have worked on the investigation are going to be required to turn over all of their documents, committee records, notes, work product, to the Select Committee, so all the documents will be in one place. And it will be up to the Select Committee to review all those documents and to make decisions about how to proceed.
Is there a budget in place for this committee? What's the timeline in terms of when the American people can find out what?
It's not going to cost any more money. We're going to pay for the cost of this committee out of existing House funds. It'll take a couple of weeks. There has to be space provided. They're going to have to hire staff. So it's going to take a little while to get up and running, but that'll give them ample time to review the documents as well.
Let me ask you about other facts that people want to know about, and that's the IRS. We know that Lois Lerner has been now held in contempt of Congress for refusing to testify on targeting of nonprofit groups. What's next? How does this, will there be a select committee there?
The contempt charge has gone to the Attorney General, and it's up to the Attorney General, Eric Holder, to prosecute this. And to assign someone to prosecute the case. Now, will he do it? We don't know, but the ball is in his court. But
you can issue an arrest for her, right? You can.
There's a provision in the Constitution that has never been used, and so that's I'm not quite sure that we want to get on that path.
So you're not looking to do that?
No, it's never been used.
Why not?
I'm not the historian here, but it's never been used, and I'm not sure that it's an appropriate way to go about this. It's up to Eric Holder to do his job.
Do you think he will?
I don't know.
Still more to come of my interview with Speaker Boehner, including pressuring Russia, jobs, tax reform, and will Hillary Clinton be subpoenaed in the Select Committee? Later, from the U.S. to Asia, where are the investment opportunities? I'll sit down with one of the most successful stock pickers and investment managers in the world as we look ahead on Sunday Morning Futures. What we need to do now is to put real pressure on Russia.
The sanctions will have some effect, but I'm concerned that we've not pushed the Europeans hard enough to take a firmer line against the Russians. And our allies in the region are scared to death. What Putin is doing is making the world less safe, and certainly making Europe less safe.
But of course, Europe is getting 35% of its gas from Russia. I mean, their hands are tied. He's using gas as leverage.
Now, that's why the president ought to take the 25 export licenses that are sitting at his Department of Energy that would allow us to export more liquid natural gas to our allies in the region. This would help free them from the bondage of the Russians and help put Americans back to work here, producing that natural gas.
So would you be pushing for further, deeper sanctions?
Absolutely.
Like what?
Absolutely. You can go after their banks. There's a lot of ways that we could ratchet this up. I do think we need the Europeans to work with us, though, because if we have a united front, the U.S. and our European allies, I think we can be very effective.
We saw what would appear to be a good jobs report last week, almost 300,000 new jobs created, and yet 800,000 people simply gave up. The participation rate continues to go down. How are we going to move the needle on job creation?
Maria, 5 years ago this week, I first asked the question, where are the jobs? And when I travel my district, when I travel around the country, I hear it all the time, where are the jobs? We've passed 40 jobs bills here in the House over the last year and a half, and they're all sitting in the United States Senate. And I yesterday called on the president to pick up his phone and call the Senate Majority Leader and tell him to move these bills. There's been no outreach from the administration on any of these jobs bills, and many of them passed with bipartisan support.
What specifically do you think are the easy levers to create jobs?
Well, how about the Keystone Pipeline? This is the easiest thing we could do. We operate over 200,000 miles of pipeline in the United States, and the only reason the president's involved in this one is because it crosses an international boundary. My goodness, this would put people to work immediately. How about the Skills Act that would combine a lot of our job training and retraining programs and put more focus on helping to train people for the jobs that are available today? Well, we've got 4 million people out of work, and guess what? We have 4 million job openings in America. But the openings we have don't match up with the skill set that those who are seeking work have. We need to do a better job of providing job training and retraining for our workers.
Tell me about the midterms and what your expectations are. A lot of people believe that the Republicans are in one of the best positions headed into the midterms in a long time.
I think we've got a chance to pick up seats in the House. I think we have a chance to win the United States Senate. We've just got to stay focused on what the American people want of us. And what they want is a better economy and better wages, more jobs.
Something we've been talking about a lot is tax reform. You've got companies like Pfizer wanting to acquire AstraZeneca just to get a better tax story and move its headquarters out of the United States. You've got umpteen number of companies keeping $2 trillion overseas. How do you move the needle on tax reform? Why hasn't this been done after all of the talking about it?
There's been a lot of work done on it, and the chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, Dave Camp, about 2 months ago outlined a discussion draft. Put it out in the public, you can go read it. That would bring top rates down to 25%, clean up a bunch of loopholes, close them up, clean up the tax code, would allow about 95% of the American people to do their own taxes on 2 sheets of paper. And so that discussion draft is out there. We have the highest corporate tax rate in the world. We have a system for multinationals that overcharge them to bring money back to the U.S. They want to bring most of that money back here. But we make it so expensive for them because we've got a broken tax code. And because it's so complicated, it only collects about 86% of what it should collect. We can help our economy bring down the rates, make it easier for people to comply. The code will be more efficient. We'll be able to collect more of what's due us.
All right, let me end where I began, and that is on the Select Committee. What's the timeline on this? When would you expect people to start finding out what the committee is learning?
There is no timeline. Their job is to look at the documents, understand where we are, understand what we don't know, and then begin to seek what we don't know.
Will Hillary Clinton be subpoenaed?
Oh, I have no idea. I'm not the chairman of the committee.
Mr. Speaker, good to have you on the program.
Oh, yeah.
Would you like to add anything else?
No, nice to be with you.
Thank you so much for joining us.
Yeah.
Speaker John Beohner. Up next, got a 401k. Remember